Chapter 40 The Eastern Empire. A week has passed after Rimiru called the Wool Prigs with the other demon lords. During that week, so many things have happened in the Kingdom of Tempest that concerns the Eastern Empire and the world in general. There are two big things that happened with Rimiru and his subordinates during the previous week. The first one was the official confirmation that the Eastern Empire were really planning to declare war on the West continent, and to do so, their plan was to crush Tempest and the Kingdom of Dorgon that was in their way. This information was brought to Rimiru by Godra. Godra was a former master of the Archmage Raisin, and he was the advisor of the Eastern Empire. He was in a joint cooperation with the Guild Master Yuki in the past because both of their goals were in alignment with each other. News about the death of Yuki by an unknown source reached him from his sources, and he decided to hasten in his plans, and which was the destruction of the Holy Church in the Western nations. His plans began after the seven Luminarias betrayed his best friend Alderman and killed him. He swore to have his revenge against them before he moved to the Eastern Empire. And he has been working on advising the Eastern Empire advising the Emperor to declare war on the Western nation and crush them. That was one of the major reasons why the Eastern Empire is declaring war. Godra changed his opinion after he decided to get intel from the previous student of Razin concerning the new demon lord of Rimiru, whom he has heard so much about. Many rumors say that demon lord Rimiru has ascended into a true dragon, but no one has been able to confirm the authenticity of the rumors because no one has ever seen demon lord Rimiru fight. But those who have met him in person all say the same thing. It's like my body unconditionally accepted the defeat. I came before his presence. The moment I came before his presence. This was the words that all those who met Rimiru in person said. Godra, being curious, decided to investigate the matter with three students of his, who were Shinji, Mark, and Zen. All three of them were otherworlders who have been taken in by Godra. Raisin, who has never betrayed his former master before, refused to help him in any way that may lead to hostility toward Rimiru or his nation. Instead, he warned Godra that being hostile towards Rimiru or the nations under him was a fool's errand, and he does not want to participate. It wasn't until Godra stepped foot inside the capital city of Tempest, called Rimiru, and was immediately captured and brought before Rimiru. Did he understand the kind of presence that the Empire was dealing with? He didn't know how, but anyone who has hostility towards the nation of Tempest and steps foot inside its capital city will immediately be detected by an unknown force, and that is why he was captured immediately after stepping foot across the city. That's along with his students. Of course, he was no weakling, and his strength was enough to do any special A-rank monster, but it was child's play compared to the Dark Oni and the small demon bear who captured him. After some discussions between himself and Rimiru with his subordinates present, he was instructed by Rimiru to return to the Empire and warn them on the folly of having a war with him. Rimiru's word at Godra were, "It is a pain to be behind to worry about the issue. Eastern Empire's greed when I have a more pressing matter to face. I will give them the courtesy of not initiating the first move. But if the Eastern Empire makes a move on my nation or any of its allied nations, I will crush and show them why I am known as the Chaos Bringer. Gautara, who switched sides and has become a subordinate of Rimiru, promised to do his best during the coming war meeting in the Eastern Empire. That was the first major thing that happened in the Kingdom of Tempest. The second thing was the crushing of the Razo family, which led to Rimuru conquering the Western Council. After Rimuru came to the council meeting, thanks to the invitation he got, he was attacked by the leader of the Razo family, Maribel, who believed that she could control him. At the same time the fight was happening, Grambel, a former hero in Libulus, started a co-op and was able to unseal the secret of Luminous. But soon Luminous has been hiding under her castle with an unknown power. Maribel came with 5 holy knights who all have strengthened to become special A class, with one of them being S class. Rimiru came to the meeting with only Tessarossa as his bodyguard, which was why Maribel believed that she could take him on. What happened next was a slaughter. Rimiru didn't even move from his chair in the meeting room and left all the fighting for Tessarossa, who slaughtered all the 5 holy knights. Maribel tried to run after seeing the overwhelming power difference between one of Rimiru's subordinates and herself, but she was also slaughtered by Tessarossa before she could flee. As that was happening, Grambel's co-op began, but he didn't factor in that Milim was having a meeting with Luminous that day, considering the things required to be a good wife. Milim and Luminous have become very close after the fight with the Holy Knights, where Milim will come and visit her and ask her advice concerning various things. So when Grambel began his co-op, Milim and Luminous came to beat him up, but Milim was stopped by the secret that Luminous was hiding under her castle, which Grambel has released. The secret happened to be an adult version of Chloe, who was one of Raymer's students. It seems that she was being controlled by her evil ego named Corona. Milim was about to go full force on her, but stopped after Luminous begged her not to kill Chloe as adult form. Both Milim and Luminous began to engage the adult Chloe, while Hinata engaged Grambel. Sadly, Hinata was killed by Grambel, which caused the child Chloe, who was back in Tempest, to disappear, while her adult form remained. Luminous, seeing Hinata died before her, was so enraged that she awakened an ultimate skill, Lustful King Asmodeus. During the fight began in earnest. Luminous killed Grambel, while Milim was doing everything she could to keep Corona back, whose power kept growing. It was after Rimuru settled things in the council and came there did the fighting stop. Rimuru used his unique skill Void Time Cage to bind Corona, which stopped her movements. He then went to Corona's body and extracted the soul of Hinata, which was inside of her. This calmed the berserk Corona and put her to sleep. Rimuru then took the soul of Hinata and placed it inside Hinata's body before he resurrected her. He also surpassed adult Chloe's unique skill, which was making her repeat a series of time loops for more than 2,000 years. This brought an end to the fighting, and those were the 2 big things that happened during the previous week. Even with all of this happening, it seems that Rimuru has not made a movement at all. She seems to be a woman of her words. She promised that she will not do anything until the day for the game to begin, and she has begun keeping her word. She has been keeping her words. This was a huge relief to Rimuru, but also a cause for concern, because he couldn't predict what she was planning if she doesn't make any movement. The Eastern Empire. At the Eastern Empire, it was officially confirmed that the war what would take place at the moment. The empire was having an imperial conference to discuss about the coming war. The Eastern Empire, said to be ancient, and its foundations were laid out by a nation that was as far back as 2,000 years. The long-standing kingdom of Nazca gradually absorbed the larger nations of Magic Kingdom, Namrium, and the Eastern Union of Ulmeria, thus giving birth to the Eastern Empire known today. Its overwhelming military powers was its backbone during the past 2,000 years. Under the reign of the uniting Iruda Nam Ui Nazca, the empire grew immensely powerful, quashing any sign of rebellion from the nations they had absorbed, and acted as the hegemonic of power, dominating the state. That was the truth of the Eastern Empire. The emperor could be described as absolute and was born from a bloodline of overlords who all passed down the name Rudra. Regardless of the truth of the matter, the emperor's word was law, and he was a firm believer of power of everything. Because of this, a special system was established that allowed a person to climb the ranks if they had the strength to. The military decision-making of the empire does not belong to anyone except the emperor. All military powers was centered on the emperor. The structure of the military might of the empire could be roughly divided into three groups. The Armored Corps, which consisted of mechanized troops and the symbol of the empire's technology. The Magical Beast Corps, which consisted of all the magical beasts captured by the empire from various regions of the world. In the Mixed Corps were non-standard mechanized troops, and uncontrollable magic beasts were dumped, loosely resembling an army. Unlike the Eastern Nation, which focused its military power on swords and magic, the Empire was pioneering a new era of science and magic. Separate from the three main military powers of the Empire, there existed another group whose sole purpose was protecting the Emperor. This group was called the Imperial Guardian. Its members are called Imperial Knights. There were 100 in total, and their strength are said to be the strongest among the Empire. The members are categorized by numbers, and the lower number, the stronger than you are. Among the Imperial Knights, those whose numbers are single digit were the strongest, and they were the closest to the emperor. This was the military of the empire. In the empire, the one who has the same authority equal to the emperor was the marshal. The identity of the marshal is still a mystery to every single digit, but it is said that to be a marshal means to be the strongest in the empire after the emperor. Back to the imperial conference, the attendees all lowered their heads as soon as the emperor was announced to have arrived. The Emperor Rudra, who was behind the bamboo blind that kept his presence from his audience. The marshal was always by his side. There was nearly 200 people assembled in the conference room. The three commanders of the commander of each of the military corps and their entourage neatly lined up were the elite of the Imperial Guardians, and lastly, the cabinet members who administrated the government country, as well as the great house of peers in the empire, which was the Eastern Empire's backbone. His Imperial Majesty, the Emperor, has arrived. That was the announcement. The Imperial Conference, which will go down in history, began. The topic of the Imperial Conference was the upcoming war against the Eastern Nation and the route to follow during the war. There were only two routes the Empire could follow, was the path in the Kingdom of Dorgon or through the Jorah Forest. The first one was a dead end to pass through the route in Dorgon. The Empire would need King Gazal's permission during the negotiations, King Gazal refused and also warned them that if they should insist on passing through his nation, he would become hostile. The second route through the Duran Forest, but the problem was that it was also territory of Demon Lord Rimiru. It was said that Demon Lord Rimiru has tamed and revived Storm Dragon Veldora. And not only that, he has also got engaged to Demon Lord Milim. This meant that the Demon Lord Rimiru and his kingdom were under the protection of two catastrophic entities. It would appear that information about Rimiru's evolution to a true dragon has not reached the Eastern Empire yet. Because of this, the Empire decided that crushing the nation of Tempest and subduing the Storm Dragon Veldora and Demon Lord Milim was their main focus, but one person was seriously against the idea. With all due respect, Your Majesty, I am against this plan of yours. The Archmage of the Empire, Master Godra, said. What a cowardly thing to say. You are still going on about that, Master Godra, laughed one of the three commander of the Armored Corps, Calgorio. The East would easily crumble if we struck them. However, the Kingdom of Tempest has not only the backing of the Storm Dragon Veldora, but also Demon Lord Milim backing it up, Godra explained. The loss we faced against the Storm Dragon happened over 300 years ago. We have long since developed countermeasures against his power, Godra said with pride. You're ridiculous. Stop living in the illusion, Calgradano. As long as the possibility of it failing cannot be denied, we must act in caution. Not to mention the rising of Demon Lord, who is said to be amongst the strongest of the Octogram. And do not forget the union between the new Demon Lord Rimiru and Demon Lord Milim, who is known as the Destroyer. We will suffer great and heavy casualty if we were to fight the nation of Tempest, Godra shouted. There's no reason to make more enemies when we already have the Eastern nation to deal with, a supporter of Godra said. This caused several silver servants to nod their heads in agreement. Calgary Dono is right. Master Godra, even Demon Lords pose no threat in the face of the great Imperial army, someone in the meeting said. You are being insolent before His Majesty, Godra Dono. Do you intend to defy the Emperor's will? Another person in the meeting room asked him. Nay, shouted Godra, refuted the objection. I am saying that rather than be hostile towards Demon Lord Milim, it would be best if we cooperate with the Dwarf King. That way there won't be any casualties, and we can easily conquer the West. Why are you being so ridiculous, Godra Dono? The Dwarf King is a master swordsman and a man of great honor. His feats are all well known, even in the Empire, as being a famous champion. His kingdom will be a greater threat than that of a newbie Demon Lord with questionable background. The Storm Dragon Veldora and Demon Lord Rimiru and Demon Lord Milim are indeed a threat, but with our overwhelming military power and our countermeasures, we can easily subdue them. The interjection came from none other than one of the three commanders. He was the commander of the Beast Magic Corps, Beast King Gaudium. Gaudium Dono. That comparison is wrong. We shouldn't make a Demon Lord our enemy, and instead seek to ally ourselves with King Gazal, Godra explained. You fool, Gaudium shouted in anger. If you mean crushing out Dorgon, I can understand, but to make them our ally is the height of foolish. Do you mean to hinder our forces that are fully ready to march with that kind of reason? What kind of drive is that? You already know that the Dwarven Kingdom is a natural fortress. Taking it by force would be impossible. Godera tried to say. Silence! The Beast King Gaudium roared. Our casualty, your cowdery, your cowderies, ugh, your cowderies, your cowardness is the reason you were dismissed from being a corps commander. Everyone in the room nodded their heads to the assessment. Ha 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 ha. Oh, Master Godera, you've grown old. Your knowledge in magic is treasured to the Empire. Well, I owe you a lot of my gratitude for helping to develop the new kinds of magic in my corpse. As Godera said, your remark just now is lamentable. It feels like you are scared of the new demon lord. Calgary smirked with complacity. Everyone in the House of the Peers and the army circle laughed at Godra. Do y'all even understand that the evil dragon ruling over the sky is one of the strongest in existence in the world, and Demon Lord Milim is called the Destroyer for a reason? Godra shouted. Because of Godara's betrayal of the Empire, he refused to tell them any information he learned about Demon Lord Rimiru. Needless to say, Godara has been trying to dissuade the Empire on going to war against Tempest because of his last bit of attachment. He who has personally seen Demon Lord Rimiru in person can say that with confidence that the Empire is doomed if they are to challenge him. Demon Lord Rimiru does not consider them a threat, but a minor annoyance. He could crush them at any moment, and he would have laughed at the foolish Demon Lord if anyone had told them that. But seeing Rimiru and the might of his kingdom had made it clear that the Eastern Empire were not his opponents at all. Is it you who do not understand, Master Godera? The might of the Empire is massively bigger than what it was 300 years ago. There is no force in existence that can hope to challenge the Empire in a fight, Godera said with confidence. I agree with Kagura Dono on this, and I have received some interesting intel from my sources in Tempest, the Third Commander Damrata said. What intel is that, Damrata Dono? Kagura asked. Well, it seems that Demon Lord Rimiru has developed a way to completely hide the capital city of Tempest inside their labyrinth. My spies said that during an invasion, the citizens, instead of fleeing all ran into the capital city, which is the labyrinth into the giant kingdom gate, which gate of the labyrinth that appears in the middle of the empty land. Damrata explained. This proves troublesome. As hard as it is to believe my intel, I know your intel has always been spot on in times of crisis, Gowden said while rubbing his chin. That's not all. I've also found out that there are a total of 100 floors inside the labyrinth, and the storm dragon Valdora was the one who was guarding it, Damrata said. I see. That makes things simpler. Since I'm not afraid of the storm dragon. I propose that I and my men should be the one to challenge the kingdom of Tempest, Kaguro said with confidence. That is a good idea, but things have changed. This time we are crushing the other continents with our full might for the first time in ages. The marshal spoke with a voice filled with power. Everyone in the room instinctively bowed their heads after hearing the voice of the marshal. It wasn't the new thing to know that the marshal was the second strongest in existence in the Empire, whose powers cannot be scaled. Her voice just now was filled with overwhelming power that all those in the room had no choice but to bow down and submit to. As you command, Lord Marshal, Kaguro said while bowing. As for you, Gaudium, I would take your forces to the north and attack the royal capital in Gracia. I believe that Demon Lord Milim will send some of our high-ranking officers there to assist them, which is the best opportunity for you to crush them all. The marshal said. Gaudium gave a triumphant smile. It shall be done without fail. The rest of the forces are to concentrate their attack on the west and crush Dorgo. As we move, the nation will believe itself to be a fortress, but it will all fall before the might of the empire. The marshal said, Long live Emperor Ruda! Everyone shouted at the same time. With that, the imperial conference came to a close, and the Eastern Empire were ready for war, but they were missing some vital information that may change their entire plan if they had known. First being that Tempest was actually being protected by Rimiru, not Valdor. Second being Rimiru is many times stronger than both Milim and Valdor combined. And third being the amazing powers of Rimiru's subordinates. If the Empire had factored these facts, then they might have been better planned than the one they agreed on. Well, only time will tell the outcome of this war, but we both know how it will turn out. That's all for today's video. Don't forget to subscribe today to become one of my domestic listeners. Goodbye and peace out, everyone.